Welcome to Athletes and Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct, where we've created a centralized platform to athletes and other alumni to network and connect within their affinity groups and tap into various resources related to finance and career and health. And it's a major issue today with athletes transitioning out of sports, between financial literacy, mental health, and we really want to help make a difference. So we interview former collegiate and professional athletes, and we talk about their transition out of sports ultimately to successful leadership, business leadership, and entrepreneurship. So excited today to have Tim Selgo. How you doing, Tim?
Great, Rob. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So Tim played basketball at Toledo, and then once he finished his basketball playing career, he got into coaching. He coached there, ultimately got into being an associate athletic director, and then he went on to many successful years as the athletic director at Grand Valley, Michigan. And today he's taken his success as an athletic director and kind of given back now. He works with Mammoth Sports Consulting, and they do college sports consulting. So kind of talking all about what he did as an athletic director and how he can help other ones. So I always like to start out, Tim, and talk about when you were growing up, how did playing sports shape you?
Shaped me in every way. Obviously, I've made a career out of athletics, and it's been absolutely wonderful, fun, and rewarding. And it started, though, Rob, as a child growing up. I grew up in a small town in northwest Ohio called Pettisville, Ohio. My dad was a teacher and coach. He was a history and geography teacher. He coached basketball. He coached baseball at this very small school. I graduated 52 people, and that was a large class at the time. I had two older brothers that were very good athletes. Both of my older brothers played college sports at Bowling Green State University. I went to Toledo. Those are arch rivals, so that's some interesting conversations there. And both of my parents were great athletes. My dad is in 5 athletics Hall of Fames. He's in 3 bowling halls of fame, believe it or not. My mom is in the Toledo Bowling Hall of Fame. Both were great bowlers. And again, my dad being a teacher and a coach, athletics was a way of life in our family. And so I grew up around it. I was fortunate to have 2 older brothers that I could learn from, and a father that could really teach. He could teach sports. He could teach life lessons. And I carried me throughout my career. And following an excellent high school career, we had a very good team. My senior year, we got to state finals in basketball. I went on to the University of Toledo, and there I had the honor of playing for a gentleman by the name of Bob Nichols. Bob Nichols, to this day, is the winningest coach in the history of the Mid-American Conference in men's basketball. And the Mid-American Conference is Toledo, Bowling Green, Miami, Ohio, Central Michigan, that bunch. And he retired in 1986. He passed away about a dozen years ago. He still remains the winningest coach in the history of the Mid-American Conference. But not only was he a great coach and we had great success competitively, he too was a great teacher. He could teach, he taught his sport, and he taught life lessons. So that's the foundation that I had as I headed into my career in college athletics, beginning as a coach and then moving into administration.
Yeah, that's great. And I love the teaching part because I think if, you just think back to sports, and I guess those coaches along the way, and I remember some of the coaches that I had growing up and, some of the others that were just role models. And I think it definitely would, I could see the impact of the players over the years. And you always, hear players talk about their coaches. And, when I was done, I graduated, coach was trying to help me. I remember I coached a lot of travel baseball. And when I first started, I remember one of the gentlemen, that coaches that had been in the program for a long time, he just kind of talked about how his players from when they were young, like getting invited to their weddings and things like that, and just the impact that it had, like just from being a player to, I guess, going out to real life, so to speak. So, what did you dream about being a professional athlete, and was it basketball or another sport?
Well, of course, growing up as a kid in Northwest Ohio, in baseball, half the kids were Cleveland Indian fans, half were Detroit Tigers fans, and we had fights all the time. And so, visions of playing in the big league someday. And then as basketball became my primary sport, and certainly in college, I believe I was one of those that was very realistic. I thought perhaps I have a chance. When I graduated from Toledo, Rob, in 1980, European basketball was in its infancy stages. And a few guys were going over there to play professionally, but it wasn't anything like it is today. Today, there's a much greater volume of opportunity for college players, regardless of what level they played at. I was second team All Mid-American Conference my senior year, but that's not going to be a draftable position, right? And so I kind of knew where I was and was realistic, and I wanted to embark on a coaching career right away, and stayed at Toledo to get a master's in education and be the graduate assistant basketball coach. But certainly every young kid, and perhaps boys more than others, but I think you're going to see young girls today aspire to be professional athletes now more than ever before, because again, the number of opportunities in almost every sport to play professionally at various levels. When you and I were growing up, baseball had the minor leagues, and it still does, of course, and several different levels of minor league baseball. So when I was an athletics director at Grand Valley, which is a Division II institution, we'd see a lot of baseball players thinking they were going to play professional baseball. Well, there's a lot of opportunities there. You may not be in the big leagues, but you get a chance to keep playing your sport and so on. And our goal was to try to steer them, hey, you need a lifelong profession here. Let's start focusing on that. But today, there's numerous opportunities. Even in soccer, we're seeing women's professional opportunities in volleyball and softball, but it was different then. And so I was very realistic, and I wasn't going to go to Europe or England and play in a league that didn't pay very much. I was ready to embark on my career, and that was kind of my approach to it.
Yeah, I always joke around. I said, I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. Unfortunately, talent wasn't there, so I ended up doing podcasts and doing what I do today. But yeah, I think you're right. It's just that there's different. Even when we talk about these, I guess some of the other sports, like you said, now there's more and more opportunities. But even then, and even now, some of these sports are people are like realistic. Like for me, I was a runner and I was good. I ran varsity, but I was like on the more the back end of varsity. So realistically, I knew I wasn't going to be an Olympian or anything like that. So I saw that bigger future where sometimes I think these, some of these star athletes that are just so zoned in their sport, they don't necessarily look at it that way. So once you got to college, we talk about athletes transition out of sports, and talked a little offline about this too. It's so important for education, and I probably when you were at school, same thing with me. There probably wasn't a big push for the schools saying, "Hey, here's a class, like a semester or a workshop." Did you see any of that then, or even through the years as an athletic director, what you're seeing today? Are schools moving to try to create more education that's not just that one-day class, but it goes further on?
Yeah, I think there is today. An example would be the high volume of sport management programs that colleges and universities offer today. Whereas again, when 45 years ago, Ohio University was offering a sports administration program. I think the Springfield College in Springfield, Mass was, and that was about it. And those programs, I do think, do a pretty good job of educating. A lot of athletes tend to drift to those programs, and they see, maybe there's a career for me in sports that doesn't involve playing the sport, because as we all know, it's a minuscule percentage of college student athletes actually make a living playing their sport. They may get a shot, they may get a tryout, but those that actually make a living is less than 1% college student athletes. So it's incumbent upon institutions to prepare them for life. As my coach used to say in college, fellas, you got to be ready because the ball's going to stop bouncing someday, and you got to get ready for something else in a career. And but I do think there's more opportunities out there. And I say that, Rob, because in my lifetime, sports, and thinking now of professional sports, has gone from this activity that occurs at a big league stadium or arena that we go watch, and it's really neat and it's entertaining, to now sports is its own industry in this country. The volume of opportunities for people to do something in sports like you're doing that doesn't involve playing a sport is unbelievable throughout the globe. Throughout internationally, there are tremendous opportunities for young people who might want to do something in their sport, but realizing, hey, I can't play this forever, but I can do something, whether it's coaching or some type of administration or some type of marketing. All sorts of opportunities are out there. So I think young people today, I think they do have perhaps a better understanding of, I'm not going to play this sport forever. And one other aspect of that, Rob, that I think is prevalent today with young people. When you and I were growing up, when we played youth sports, it was maybe Little League Baseball that was organized. The rest of it, we kind of did on our own. We had, pickup games of basketball and baseball in the neighborhood and those kinds of things. Today's young people grow up around organized sports their entire lives. I have 5 grandchildren, and they're in every organized sport there is, from football to basketball to baseball to soccer to, and so on and so forth. And so they do get to a point, I think, in the later years of their high school careers where they have to answer the question, do I really want to continue on? College sports is not easy. There's a lot of dedication that takes place there. And so I do think that the sports management programs at the collegiate level have filled a void for a lot of young people that, they just don't want to play forever their sport. They're a little bit burnt out, and maybe they want to do something more than intramurals, but they can still be involved in sports in some way. So I don't know. That's kind of a holistic picture, I guess, to what we're talking about. But the job of teachers and leaders in sport are to prepare these kids for life after sports. Sooner or later, it's going to end. There's lifelong sports like bowling and golf, tennis, pickleball has now become a lifelong sport. But most of the team sports are not lifelong sports. So you better prepare for something else.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think it'd be great to see, I don't know if it falls on, as listening to what you're saying, I don't know if it falls on like the athletic department, it falls on the coaches, or to your point, maybe it's something at the schools, just at the sports management, and maybe even it's a class that, through the sports management program that athletes take. Because I was talking to one of my former guests that played football at University of Buffalo, and he said he really wishes he would have had a mandatory workshop or class. And as a coach and as an athletic director, there's not a lot of time for the athletes, especially during season. Yeah. What are some of the, how do you think that can be approached with the athletes, especially the ones that are so zoned in that aren't really thinking about next steps?
Yeah, well, at Grand Valley, the 20 years I was director of athletics there, we offered opportunities to help educate our student athletes in different ways. We had a life skills program that it was not a class they registered for. I think there's opportunities out there. I think some colleges and universities provide that, but we tried to do it with our alumni, bringing our alumni back and talk to them about what their college career meant to them and what it means to them now in their profession and in their future. I always brought back a male and a female alum every year at our kickoff meeting. We called it our Laker Pride and Tradition meeting at the beginning of the year. And we had them address those things to all of our student athletes. And we had 550, 600 student athletes sitting in the bleachers listening to them. But through our life skills program, we also offered opportunities for our student athletes in the form of, we'll call them seminars, perhaps an evening hour with local professionals to come in and talk to them. One of them was financial management. For example, all right, you're about ready to graduate, hopefully getting a paycheck. You need to learn how to manage that and plan for the future in various ways like that. So I do think there are some courses that offer, study skills and life skills, but I personally think it's incumbent upon the leaders, the coaches,
Right.
and the administration to lead the way with that and offer opportunities to just help educate. A college student athlete is really busy. I mean, it's you better be dedicated. I don't care if you're at the Power Four level or Division III. There's going to be a time commitment involved here, and it's going to be intense at times. And sometimes it's going to be a grind. And it's our job to educate them. That's good. That's okay. That's good preparation for the rest of life, because the rest of their life is going to be a grind. I had a college coach, Rob, that was not only an outstanding basketball coach with a tremendous record, but he talked to us all the time about overcoming adversity and that we're going to face adversity during our college careers. And the way you handle that is going to determine your success later in life. Because as we all know, once you get out in the real world, there's adversity all the time. In fact, my college coach talked to me about that on my recruiting visit. And I share that with my clients now. Hey, you can't be afraid to talk to recruits about the fact that it's not going to go perfectly at this school. Things are going to go wrong at times. We're here to help guide you and teach you to help you to overcome that adversity. But that's going to determine your success in life. So that's why I always like it when we brought alumni back, athletic alumni back, to speak to our current student athletes and talk about it. When you get a job, a family, you're going to get a new boss, and you're probably going to get a new boss, 2 or 3 times a decade. And you better be able to handle that. You better be able to deal with that. So those are all the lessons I think can be taught in both secondary school and higher education. But I think the leaders have to be the ones that take the step, and that demonstrates to those kids they care about it. They care about your future. That's what you're here for.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I guess, what you're talking about with just the education part of it, hopefully as this continues the movement to grow, more and more schools implement that. It sounds like at a coaching level, even in some cases, the athletic director level, there is that component of that education on the front end. And, I think about sometimes from a recruiting perspective, it's almost like that could be a recruiting benefit to a school, as if you're a parent of a high school athlete and you've got 5 schools looking at your student athlete, and they all have very similar offerings, but one talks about how, hey, we care about your student athlete. We're going to guide them through. We're going to talk about not only playing, but their life after sports. And then to take it a step further, when they're alumni, we're also going to help them as well, because we want to make sure that, if an alumni is struggling, that they can come back and feel confident that the university or college will help them in their struggles.
Yeah. When I work with my clients, we talk to them a lot. In the end of our work, the result is a strategic plan for their athletics department. And, it starts with their mission and their vision and their core values. And at Grand Valley, we talked about our fundamentals of success. I mean, the mission of higher education is to teach. Grand Valley State University's mission is to educate our students to shape their lives, their professions, and their societies. That's what we were there for. Everybody at that campus, whether you're a faculty or whether you're a staff person, your job was to educate our students to shape their lives, their professions, and their societies. That's preparing them for the future. In the athletics department, we had what we called 3 fundamentals for success for Laker athletics. The first one was create the best learning environment possible. The second one was challenge our teams to competitive greatness. And the third one was commit the energy necessary for success. But it started with creating the best learning environment possible. And we wanted that to be number one, because that's why they're coming to college. And it was our job to create the environment so that they could, A, get their degree from Grand Valley, and B, prepare them for the rest of their lives. Now, we were Division II, but when you go outside the Power Four, you're going to have far less than 1% student athletes go on and play professional. At Grand Valley, I was there 20 years. We probably had, thousands and thousands of different student athletes. And I can probably count on one hand the number that we had that actually made a living playing professional sports. So our number one job was to create that environment where they could get their degree and prepare them for the rest of their lives. The beauty of Division II is I think most of those student athletes come to the realization that they're not going to play this sport for money someday. And so they appreciate and are willing learners to, okay, here's the things you all need to think about. And whether you offer a class in it, whether you're providing seminars, those are the things that should be taught daily by your coaching staff. And we hammered those three fundamental success home with our staff enough that I'm quite certain a lot of the veterans would roll their eyes when Tim would get up and start talking about our three fundamentals for success. But I wanted them to know that's what it was about. To the point, Rob, where every time I met with a recruit and a recruit's parents, I walked them through that. And I wanted them to know these are what we hang our hat on here. This is what we believe in. And we believe it's our job to create the best learning environment possible. And it's going to be your son or daughter's job to learn. Our job is to teach, your job is to learn. So, again, I'd like to think, and it's a rewarding feeling for me when I now go back and see our alumni. I'll go back for the homecoming football game or the Hall of Fame banquet, and I see our alumni or I see them on social media using phrases like that or alluding to that what it meant for them when they were at Grand Valley. And it's a tremendously rewarding feeling because that's what it's all about.
Oh yeah, and I love hearing that, and it sounds like Grand Valley is that perfect model, and just that other schools should emulate because I think it's everything you talked about there is great. I mean, it sounds like the foundation's there for learning, and that's something that's so important. So you touched real quick, but good segue into alumni. Obviously, alumni engagement for us is a big thing at Alumni Direct, but you talked about bringing back some athletes, talking to the overall, all the sports teams, which is good. Do you see more schools, and I guess even in your consulting, are you trying to, encourage them to bring back, and not only just for like that one event, but more so to maybe mentoring? So, at certain schools you hear they're starting to do mentoring programs, but I've talked to some where they're kind of saying, yeah, we don't do a very good job of it. Give me some thoughts on that.
Yeah, no question about it. One of the beauties of college athletics is tradition. It's an enterprise in which you can relish in the successes and the great traditions that you have. And whether that's one sport or all the sports or, it's one of the things we really enjoy about college athletics. And that tradition is made by your alumni. They're the ones that develop that tradition. And it's incumbent upon the current student athletes to not just carry it on, but to create their own history and their own traditions. And so engaging alumni and bringing them back is so important because a simple word for that, Rob, is school spirit. I mean, you can go to some schools and man, you feel it. It's there. And everybody takes pride in their school. Some schools don't have it as much. So we work with our clients all the time to engage their alumni. They've all had some successes in one way, shape, or form. Certainly not every student athlete's going to have a great experience. Some might not feel good about their alma mater. And sometimes when they get older, that changes. They realize, I learned some good lessons back then. Maybe I didn't get to play as much as I wanted. Maybe our team didn't do as well. Maybe my coach wasn't as good as I wish he or she was. But you know what? I learned some lessons. They helped me. And sometimes later on, that is triggered. So that's why I think it's critical for institutions to try to engage their alumni and connect with them. Quite honestly, in higher education today, it's critical that you're trying to generate external revenue. External revenue meaning, of course, ticket revenue, sponsorship revenue, fundraising. And your alumni are important in that. Certainly, you're trying as a leader in college athletics to get your alumni to give back. But it's more than just getting them to give back. It's getting them engaged again in your institution and somehow getting them back on campus. Homecoming is the prime example. Everybody has homecoming. Why? It brings their alumni back.
Right.
And everybody has a good time, and you feel warm and fuzzy about good old State U or your alma mater. And that's the perfect example. But you need to try to do that more often. And in my humble opinion, especially at levels less than Division I, schools need to do that sport by sport. You mentioned you were a distance runner. The cross country and track and field alumni at an institution, if they're going to get engaged and give back, they're going to want that support to go to cross country and track and field.
Right.
They don't want to, it's not like being at Ohio State and they're all, Buckeyes, and they give a bunch of money to get a good seat at football games and a good parking spot. And it's kind of, they bring in millions for the entire athletics program. At smaller schools, they need a few $100 from one of their alumni.
Right.
That matters. But more than that, schools need to work at engaging them. An example might be at Grand Valley, we hosted the national championships in Division II in track and field. We had all our alumni come back to help us work, volunteer to work, and be the timers and the recorders and do all those things. And it's a lot to host a meet like that. And they helped out. Then we had a reception for them the first night for all those that volunteered. We fed them and had drinks. And guess what? They give back and give back regularly now because they're engaged with their institutions. They're meeting the current student athletes, and that's critical for alumni to meet the current kids. And our approach to them was, listen, even if you didn't have a great experience as a collegiate student athlete, help make it better for the current student athletes. And you can do that not just by giving back financial support, but by lending them your support in every other way, whether mentoring them, pairing up current student athletes that want to be bankers with those that are in the banking industry that are alumni. And that's just one example. I'll give you another very good real live example, Rob. At Grand Valley, we've had a wonderful football alumni association for years. When I arrived 28 years ago, they were a solid group, and they've just grown into a fantastic alumni support group of Grand Valley football. And I know a lot of those guys support the institution and support all of our athletics programs beyond just football because of their engagement. Football has a way of bringing them back, right?
Right.
Homecoming, the game, the tailgating. And you need to do that with every sport. There's no reason you can't have a little reception tailgate-like thing before softball and soccer games or lacrosse games. There's no reason you can't. And so you've got to try and do that with all the sports. But our football alumni, they now provide 4 cookouts a year for our football team as they're going through preseason training that they're going through right now, which are the dog days of August. Okay, it's hard. And these guys provide, as the AD, our head trainer, we're always getting nervous because it was hot bratwurst and hamburgers on the grill and French fries and that. And maybe we're not feeding them nutritionally exactly what we want to feed them, but the players love it and they're around our alumni. Our alumni are doing the cooking, and it's grown into something wonderful. But a specific example, I think, of what we're talking about here is we've had a good number of Grand Valley football alumni that got into medical sales of knee replacements, hip replacements, and they've hired other football alumni. And there's a network now of football alumni in that field, which is, I'm a baby boomer, and I just got a new right knee 2 months ago. That's a growing field, and we've got a lot of guys doing great things out there in that profession. And they've sought current players to bring them into that and be a part of that profession. One last example. So I got a new right knee on June 14th. As I'm in there, as the surgeon's speaking with me and my wife before I'm going into surgery to get this done, a gentleman by the name of Mike Hoad, Hoad. Mike was a football linebacker for us at Grand Valley. He's one of my favorite Lakers of all times. He came as a walk-on. He wasn't big. He wasn't fast. He was a bright kid who worked his tail off and learned all kinds of great lessons. And by his senior year, his fifth year, Mike was the one that caught the interception that ended the game in the national championship game, and the crowd emptied and stormed the field. And this was a kid that never started in his career, but our coaches played him at key moments because he was always prepared. He watched more video than any player we had, and he was ready to go. And he made ESPN top 10 highlights the next day. But I'm in there getting my surgery. Here it is 21 years later after Mike made that play. And in pops around the curtain, Mike Hoad pops his head in. He's got his scrubs on because the people that provide the hip and knee replacements, they're there in the surgery. And so it was Mike providing my new knee. And it felt great for me. He had a big grin. I had a big grin. And as he left, I said, "Hey, Hoder, you better make sure this knee works." And he turned around and says, "Don't worry, Mr. Selgo, it'll work." And here I am 2 months later, and I'm right. That's the example, Rob, of alumni helping current student athletes and growing that network. And I was very fortunate in Grand Valley. We got a lot of great people that do that.
Yeah, that's I love that story. That's awesome. And I think it's all about alumni engagement. I think it's I think athletes want to come back, and I think it's a two-way street. Obviously, the schools need to ask the athletes to want to come back. I mean, I was on a call. I agreed up with my school, and had one of the other gentlemen on was a Hall of Famer from the school and played 10 years in the NFL, and he just said, "Tap me in." Like I want to help, and I think it's the model that you talked about at Grand Valley is awesome. It'd be great to see other schools implement something like that. I think it's so important. So let's talk real quickly about networking, connecting, and the importance of it, especially while you're still playing.
Yeah, it's absolutely critical. And we try to talk to our student athletes about that all the time. And often, Rob, that doesn't, the light bulb doesn't go on until sometimes their senior year, late in their senior year, but usually their junior year. My experience was that freshmen in college, they're just trying to survive. By the sophomore year, second year, they've got a lay of the land, they've got their foundation laid, and they're kind of focused on their schoolwork and am I going to play this year? And some of them still don't know what they're going to do in life. They don't know what major they want. By NCAA rules, by their third year, they have to establish a major. So they have to declare a major. And we all know of cases sometimes students go into their fourth year and switch majors because they find out maybe I want to do something else. And that's what's important of connecting and networking with alumni, because there's a lot of alumni out there in doing great work in their profession that maybe is not the profession they studied for, or they switched late in their career. And so I think it's critical to help current student athletes make connections, as you indicated, whether they're going to education or business or health science related fields, or they want to go on a professional school in law school or medical school. It's incumbent upon leaders, athletics directors, and coaches to help them develop that network, help them be able to get a vision ahead of what this looks like, whether that involves an internship, whether that involves job shadowing. I think it's critical that to me, the best degrees, college degrees, are when college or university has a robust internship program where they can connect. When I think of the Northwesterns and Notre Dames of the world, they do a pretty darn good job of that.
Yeah.
Of connecting their current student athletes, maybe between their junior and senior year, sophomore, junior year, in the summer months with one of their alums. And so I think those are all critical to do, because, again, it comes down to, what is higher education there for? It's to teach, and it's to prepare those kids for the rest of their lives. And the best way that they can do that is to see what actually takes place in that profession. And they're more often than not the most comfortable of seeing that and learning from alumni. Now, it can occur through boosters. Well, I say that in quotation marks.
Right.
People that are friends of the program, that are in a profession, absolutely. But it is the best through alumni. And the reason that is, every one of those athletic alums knows what those kids are going through right now.
Yeah.
And I went through that. I was a basketball player, and it was hard. I mean, my freshman year was hard. I was homesick. Practices were harder. School was harder. And thank goodness I had Jeff Seaman. Jeff Seaman was a senior when I was a freshman, and we roomed together on road trips. And he was a tremendous role model for me, not only as a person, but as a player. And he was an extremely dedicated player. He worked his tail off. But I also saw Jeff Seaman. His degree was physical education. It's often called movement science now. And Toledo had a really strong program, and I was in that program. And Jeff went on to get his doctorate at the University of Arizona. I mean, this was a serious student. And, I had the privilege of that. Well, I was a senior when I was a freshman, Rob, but immediately he became an alum. And he was an alum I kept in touch with. And he was an alum that could kind of prep me for, this is what it's going to be like. And it's hard sometimes for student athletes when they come to the end of their sport. You spend, especially today, kids are going through club sports their whole youth. I've listened to our soccer players at Grand Valley. We've won 7 national championships in women's soccer, and they've played soccer their whole lives, and then it comes to an end. All of a sudden it comes to an end, and that's hard. But it's incumbent upon the leaders to help prepare them for that moment, help them through that moment, and move them forward. One last story about that. I'll share a personal story with you. I was a gym rat. My dad was a coach. My older brothers play. I was a gym rat. I was at my dad's practices all the time when I was a little kid, shooting on the side basket. And I loved playing basketball. And I got the chance to get a full scholarship and play college basketball at Toledo. Played 4 years. We had a great run of success. We won over 20 games all 4 years. Got the Sweet 16 1 year. But my junior year, we got Sweet 16, lost to Notre Dame. My senior year, we won the Mid-American Conference. And in the first round of the NCAA tournament, we're playing Florida State at Western Kentucky. And we had the lead, and we lost the lead with about 5-6 minutes to go, and we lost that game. And it was tough, really tough. We were in the top 25. We were really good for a few years there. And I get in the locker room, and all of a sudden it hit me. It's over. I'm done. And I'm not ashamed to say I was crying. I had a towel in front of my face like you see on March Madness. I know what all those kids are going through.
Right.
And I got in the shower after the game, and I stood under that shower for 5 minutes, bawling my eyes out. And it's over. I knew it was over. I knew I wasn't going to play professionally. And all those years, all of a sudden, it kind of hit me. Don't ask me why. Call it divine intervention, whatever you want to describe this as. It kind of hit me that, dude, you got to be the best you were ever going to get. And this feeling came over of me of, okay, it's going to be okay. I did the absolute best I could, and now it's time to move on. And I went out to eat with my parents, and it was time to move on. And that's what I hope for college student athletes. I hope they can come to that conclusion at the end of their career, that they did the absolute best they could, and now it's time to move on. And if you can get them help with alumni and a network to help them make that transition, that bridge to professional life, you just find so much success, and it's a great rewarding experience.
Yeah, that's great. And I think you kind of answered the question. I always ask about giving advice, because you kind of gave the advice there of just, you had that great run and look at the big picture now, and just, get involved in your alumni. You summed it up great there. So two quick questions I always like to ask people. So what advice would you give to freshman Tim if you can go back?
I think the answer to that is, I'll answer that in the way that we had an exit interview with outgoing seniors in every sport. And that's one of the questions that we would ask. And they would always answer, and this is how I would always answer it, is stay on top of your schoolwork early on. Don't fall behind. And the best way to do that is make sure you go to class. Go to class. If you're going to go to class, and make sure you go there all the time, because occasionally they might miss because of their travel schedule with their sport. But if they're going to class, professors recognize that. They're willing to help when it's needed, and they'll stay on top of things if they go to class. So that's really the number one piece of advice. If you're not going to class, it gets harder, and you do fall behind. So to stay on top of things from day one. And, you're in college. You should enjoy college as a college student should, as we all did. There's moments where you're going to have fun. There's moments to be a college kid. But you're there to get an education, number one. You're there to play your sport, number two. And that has to be the priorities. Those two have to be the top two priorities. And then it's having fun. And there will be time to have fun, as dedicated as you may have to be. But number one, Rob, gotta go to class.
And then let's fast forward to, even though you hit some of it, but fast forward to senior. What advice would you give the senior, Tim?
Yeah. Well, with the seniors, we always try to start that bridge between engaging them to come back and stay engaged. And, our alumni association, they get 1 year's free membership. For example, I'll use our football alumni association again. For example, they have a golf outing every year. Recently graduated players can come play the first year in the golf outing, right, for nothing, because they may not have much money to afford the fee. And to get them engaged, to get them to come back for these cookouts I mentioned, get them to come back for homecoming, all right? So with seniors, it's okay, please keep in touch. We want to know where you're at. And that's generally been a challenge in years past. It's not as big of a challenge today because of social media. There's a lot easier ways to connect with and engage with alumni. So we just try to encourage them to stay connected with us, stay engaged, and coaches can do the best job of that by keeping in touch with them, whether it's through a newsletter every 3 months, whether it's through just engaging with them in some way, bringing them back for an alumni game. Those are all examples of things you can do. But we just encourage our seniors to, hey, if we can help in any way, let us know. I can't tell you the volume of letters of recommendations that I have written over the years, and the volume of times I've suggested various alumni they should reach out to and talk to them. Because that's the best way for them to learn and continue to learn, and to help them out make that successful transition to real life.
Yeah, and as you could tell, like Tim, I could probably go on for hours talking about all these different things and talking about his distinguished athletic director career, but we'll just do a quick fast forward now and talk about. And you've talked a lot about it throughout this our discussion, but talk about what you're doing today with Mammoth Sports Consulting and how you're kind of imparting like all what we've talked about today to some of these different athletic programs.
Yeah, great question. Thanks. In 2016, when I retired my first career in college athletics as an athletics director, I knew I wanted to stay involved in college athletics some way. That was my wheelhouse. And I began a consulting career. I'm now entering year 9 as a consultant to college athletics departments. We work with, and it's all with schools that are not Division I, Division II, Division III, NAIA, 2-year community colleges. And what I really wanted to do, Rob, the primary thing that I do is I set up a leadership development program. As an athletics director, I mentored a lot of young athletics directors. But while you're in the chair, you don't have a great deal of time to truly mentor them real well. It might be grab a cup of coffee here, have a lunch at a convention here, but they might be able to pick your brain on one issue. But an athletics director's job is a very comprehensive job. You're dealing with student athletes, coaches, faculty and staff on campus, university administration. You're dealing with facilities projects. You're dealing with all of your external constituents, your alumni, your boosters, and people in the community, and so on, and media, and whatever. So it's a comprehensive job. And to really mentor someone, I knew it would take a lot more than just one meeting. So I set up a leadership development program. I work with athletics directors at colleges and universities, and he or she's athletic staff and program. And the 2-year program, I do an assessment of their program. I provide a recruiting workshop for their coaches. In year 2, we do a retention workshop. Retention is so important for universities and colleges today. And it's very important for college coaches if they want to be successful. 21 and 22-year-olds will beat 18 and 19-year-olds all day long at every level of college athletics. And so for coaches to do the best job of teaching and bringing them along and developing them, they need to retain them. So we do that. I cover everything that's involved with leadership of an athletics department, A to Z, from the hiring process to generating external revenue to marketing to Title IX to developing your staff, all those kinds of things. At the end, it culminates in a strategic plan for that athletics department. So that's my 2-year leadership development program that primarily I do. I also do departmental assessments. People will bring me in just to assess their athletics department. It's often good to get a third party's viewpoint on things. It's just like a lot of coaches like to be self-scouted. They'll bring somebody in to scout their team, to learn about their team from a different set of eyes. And so we do that. And I'll also just do strategic plans when people need a strategic plan done. And I do it a little differently. I come in and do a strong assessment and break athletics department down into every area, from athletics to compliance to staffing to facilities to scholarships to generating external revenue to Title IX to diversity, equity, inclusion. And where are we at in each of these areas? Where do we aspire to be? And how are we going to get there? So I like to think I provide a lot more value. I'm very affordable. And that's been a hallmark, I think, of Mammoth Sports Consulting. And it's been a terrific experience. Mammoth is a sports construction company that brought my colleague and I in to start a consulting team. And we're also working on the construction end. We have a lot of relationships. And there are a lot of colleges and universities that need help with their sports facilities. And Mammoth is, in my opinion, the best in the business because they only do sports construction. We have our own architects, engineers, estimators. We have our own creative design team, and of course, our own crews. And I think we're the best out there, of course. So it's been a wonderful experience to be a part of Mammoth. Thank you for asking.
Oh, you're welcome. And how can people?
They can go to click on mammothbuilt.com or mammothsportsconsulted.com. But they can get to our consulting site off the Mammoth Built website. And they'll find us there, and I think they'll enjoy scrolling through the Mammoth site and all that we can offer.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're on LinkedIn and all that, where people can reach out to you.
At Tim Selgo on X, LinkedIn, Facebook, you can find me there, and I'd be more than happy. As you can tell, Rob, I love to talk sports. So anybody that wants to reach out, and if they just want to talk sports, they want advice, whatever it might be. I'm enjoying this phase of my life here in this second career. I'm entering my 45th year, actually, of college athletics. And I'd like to think along the way I learned a few things, and hopefully perhaps I can be of help to somebody else. That's my mission nowadays, to help others.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that definitely mine as well. And you can find us at alumnidirect.com. You can follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, all that. And the show, it's so important. Every week I have great guests on like Tim, and the advice that these former athletes are providing, I think could be so instrumental in helping, this big issue now of athletes transition out of sports. So you could find the podcast on our YouTube channel, Alumni Direct, as well as across all the podcast networks. Tim, this has been great. Really appreciate all the time.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate you having me. It's been enjoyable.
You're welcome.